Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely wild story. We're looking at how deeply held values and some truly pioneering logistics built an absolute retail empire. You know, it really proves you don't need a silver spoon to completely rewrite the rules of global business. We're going to break down the systems, the heart, and the relentless drive behind the world's largest company.
All right, let's just dive right into this. $500 billion. Let that sink in for a second. Back in 2018, Walmart did something no other company in any industry had ever pulled off. They crossed this staggering $500 billion revenue mark in just 12 months. I mean, to put that into perspective, they were serving hundreds of millions of people every single week, all over the planet. The sheer scale of this operation is just mind-boggling.
But, all this massive scale leads us to the central mystery of our explainer today. How exactly did a guy with just a pickup truck, zero business connections, and no major investors manage to build the biggest retail empire in human history? Well, to figure that out, we have to rewind the clock way back, way before the billion-dollar revenues and the satellite networks.
Section 1. A small-town dream. From the Great Depression to Bentonville.
So this entire corporate behemoth actually starts with a scrappy, hardworking kid from a tiny town in Oklahoma. Samuel Walton was born in 1918, right into a family struggling through the Great Depression. He learned the value of a dollar really early on, milking cows and working paper routes. Later, he served in the Army Intelligence Corps during World War II, which taught him that details absolutely matter, that you have to think like a soldier, but serve like a human being. By 1944, he buys a small Ben Franklin variety store, and it's a huge hit. But then, disaster strikes. In 1950, his landlord literally refuses to renew his lease, just so he could hand this highly profitable business over to his own son. Sam lost everything, his location, his brand, his customers, but instead of throwing in the towel, that painful loss totally fueled him. He packed up, moved to a quiet little town called Bentonville, Arkansas, and just started all over again.
Section 2. Rewriting Rules of Retail, the Philosophy of Walton's 5 and 10.
Bentonville basically became Sam's blank canvas to just completely flip traditional business logic on its head. If you look on the left, that's the traditional retail model of the time. High margin, low volume. Basically, you make a fat $5 profit on 100 shirts. But look on the right, this is Sam's radical approach. Low margin, high volume. He actually chose to slash his own profit margins down to just 50 cents, but in return, he aimed to sell 10,000 shirts. People literally thought he was crazy for voluntarily cutting his profits, but Sam knew that passing those savings on to the customer would build unbreakable trust and loyalty.
He built his whole foundational system around 3 simple steps. First, serve the customer like family. I mean, he would literally carry bags to their cars. Second, buy cheap and sell cheaper, making up the difference in sheer volume. And third, never stop learning. Sam had this relentless habit where, on weekends, he'd drive 100, maybe 200 miles just to visit competitor stores. He'd walk their aisles with a little notepad, ethically stealing their best ideas and, probably a few of their customers, and he'd have them rolling out in his own stores by Monday morning.
All of this customer obsession culminated in 1962. Ignoring all the skeptics who laughed and said rural folks wouldn't buy much, Sam opened the very first Walmart discount city in Rogers, Arkansas. He saw that rural America was just being completely ignored by the big national chains. By bringing massive variety and ridiculously low prices to these small towns, word of mouth just exploded. People didn't just shop there, they became absolute superfans.
Section 3. Building the Unstoppable Machine, Logistics, Satellites, and Supercenters. So, moving into the 1970s, Sam realizes something crucial. To grow really fast, you can't just open random stores. You have to build a machine that makes stores. Enter the cluster strategy. Instead of scattering locations all over the map, Walmart expanded in tight, concentric circles around their existing distribution centers. This hyper-focused strategy drastically cut down fuel costs, delivery times, and management expenses. It created this unbreakable web of regional dominance before the national competitors even realized what was happening.
But they weren't just expanding geographically, they were innovating technologically. Walmart actually stopped relying on third-party distributors and built their own trucking supply chain so they had total control. And get this, by the late 1970s, they were installing satellite dishes on store rooftops for real-time inventory tracking. They were doing this before major banks were even using computers for real-time data. Plus, they launched supercenters throwing groceries, pharmacies, and retail all under one giant roof.
These moves completely transformed Walmart from a simple chain of stores into a highly advanced living intelligence network.
By 1985, this massive success caught everyone's attention, leading Forbes to name Sam Walton America's richest man, sitting on a net worth of $2.8 billion. But here's the crazy part. Contrast that number with the guy himself. He's still driving around in a beat-up Ford pickup truck, eating at cheap local diners, and absolutely refusing to move into a mansion. More importantly, he kept that bottom-up culture alive. He called his employees associates, treated them like co-owners, and created stock-sharing programs that legitimately turned a lot of everyday workers into millionaires.
Section 4. Surviving without the founder, the 1992 transition and global boom.
In 1990, right at the peak of Walmart's domestic dominance, Sam received a devastating diagnosis: bone cancer. Just a month before he passed away in 1992, a very frail Sam Walton was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Sitting there in a wheelchair, his voice was weak, but his spirit was incredibly strong. And he delivered this powerful quote: "If we work together, we'll give the world an opportunity to live better every single day." He passed away shortly after, leaving behind a legacy that his son Rob, along with a heavily trained team of executives, swore to protect.
Now you might be wondering, could this massive machine actually run without its architect? The answer is a resounding yes. The company didn't collapse. It didn't lose its way. Back in 1992, revenue was $43 billion. By 1999, it hit $100 billion, and by 2002, $150 billion. Because Sam built a resilient system based on data, logistics, and culture rather than just a personality cult, Walmart actually scaled to the point where they were selling more in a single year than the entire GDP of some small countries.
And they weren't just growing in the US anymore. The 90s kicked off a massive international expansion. They pushed into Mexico, quickly becoming the largest retailer there. They bought up Woolco in Canada and Asda in the UK, and they formed really smart local partnerships in places like China, Brazil, and India. The secret here? Walmart succeeded globally not by forcing a rigid American model everywhere, but by adapting to local cultures while keeping their legendary logistical efficiency completely intact.
Section 5. Adapting to the modern era: e-commerce, crises, and corporate conscience. Of course, the retail landscape never really stops shifting, right? When faced with intense modern pressure and heavy criticism over things like labor and wages, Walmart didn't just bury its head in the sand, they adapted. They raised base wages across the US and funded college tuition programs for their associates. When Amazon started threatening their dominance, they pivoted hard, spending billions to buy Jet.com, launching Walmart Plus, and basically transforming into a digital tech company. And seeing public health as the next big frontier to help people, they even started opening low-cost health and dental clinics right inside their stores. This modern infrastructure was put to the ultimate test in 2020. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, Walmart was immediately declared an essential service, and their massive logistical machine was pushed to its absolute limits. But they stepped up. They rapidly installed barriers, handed out safety bonuses, massively expanded online pickup and delivery, and even hosted vaccination centers. When global supply chains were literally collapsing all around us, Walmart played a huge role in keeping the world fed and supplied.
Which brings us to this final, provocative thought. How does a simple, small-town philosophy scale up to change the entire world? It is truly incredible to realize that this staggering global intelligence network, this absolute economic powerhouse, all started with just one guy, a beat-up pickup truck, a notepad, and an absolute obsession with helping everyday people save money so they could live better. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.